Hi there, listeners. This is Catherine. Before we get started on this episode, I just wanted to let you know that we will once again be talking about tracking calories. If this is a sensitive topic for you and you don't feel like it fits into your plan right now, please feel free to skip on by this episode. And without further ado, on with the episode. Hello, and welcome to another morosely marital episode of We Only Look Thin. I am one of your hosts, Catherine Weigel. I am a Tiny Habits certified coach. I am happily marital.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I am one of your hosts, and with me today is...
Donald Weigel, and I am happily marital also.
That doesn't work. But...
I'm dying to know what the morose marital part of this episode is about to be. But I am one of your hosts, and I have lost about 100 pounds, and I have kept it off for about 5 years now. And we are here to tell you about it.
We are, but the morosely marital is Bride of Trackula.
Oh, yeah. That makes me... Yeah, last week it was called... Our episode was about calorie tracking, and it was called Trackula because it's October and it's Halloween and Trackula or Count Trackula, Count Trackula. And now this is Bride of Trackula.
It is.
And you know, I for one am really happy that ladies are getting in on
tracking
and really on the whole vampire the whole vampire game. You know, it's been a male dominated field for so long, for really centuries really.
You're so inclusive. It's kind of gross. No, but I'm glad that Trackula finally has a bride, or maybe I'm glad that Bridula has a Trackula or something like that.
Yeah, I wish that instead of just being known as the Bride of Trackula, though, she could be known as her own person.
As her own
vampire.
That'd be really good. You know, I'm actually kind of, on Sesame Street, if we're going back to the OG Count.
Yeah,
Count
Von
Count. He never had anybody to call his own.
Yeah. Not that we know of. There could have been lots of off-camera romances.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dish, give me the tea.
I'm not saying there were. I'm just saying, you see the Count eyeballing some of those other Muppets.
Yeah. Okay, this turned a corner. But yeah, we're talking about Bride of Trackula. So last week we talked a lot about just basic tracking, how to do it, where to do it, and all that jazz. As jazzy
yes, and
vampires.
All that jazz.
Sure.
Yeah, it was fantastic episode. One worth listening to again. So if you haven't heard it, go back and check it out.
Do it.
Yeah.
But, while you were listening to that episode, you might have been crossing your arms and going, Catherine and Donald, but what about when I go out to eat? What if I'm not the one cooking? What if I don't even know stuff? We're going to answer every single question you've ever had about. This is a compendium of every question you might have. So
we're just going to leave the microphones running and go about our daily lives for the next few weeks. And as people ask tracking questions, we will stop and answer them.
Know it all. That is what we're going to do. But you know what? I think we can definitely get lost in those just over questioning. Yeah, but what about this? Well, what if that happens and I'm not there? And what if it's a restaurant that I don't know about? And what? I think some of those impulses to over question are actually sort of delay tactics on making progress. Because when we overthink things, and I know Donald is a questioner, and so there are times when he might over question.
Yeah, and look, I feel like I've gotten much better at it in the last 5 years since I became aware of what a questioner was and what that entails. But a questioner essentially is somebody who needs a lot of data before they act. And so they ask a lot of questions. And I think that in a lot of cases, and I know this from personal experience, that what I actually want and what questioners actually want is for someone to tell them that the situation is hopeless and it's okay for them to do nothing.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Wow, that got dark and spooky.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it really is just a matter of like, I hate it when I buy something and then I later on find out that I could have gotten a better deal on something else. Like that kind of thing. So there is that like fear of jumping in too fast on things. But with most of these health and fitness things, just you can do stuff and then you can change it later if you find out that there's something that's going to work for you better. And I do change things, and I have changed many times over the years.
Yeah. Do you know that I was buying vegetarian burgers for you the other day, and you're like, oh, get this burger. And I know that there are two different packagings. One is 100 calories a burger, and the other is 110 calories a burger. It's the same product.
Yeah.
I was stressing so much about whether or not you were going to be mad about me getting the 110 calorie ones. And I was like, Donald doesn't have a 10 calorie problem. It's fine. And so I was very happy to make a decision about which ones to buy you.
Yeah,
so now that's all you're thinking about.
And you know what? I was trying to decide right now whether I should go with I've been furious with rage since you bought them, or I didn't even look at the package, which is actually the truth. I didn't actually look to see which one you got.
Oh, that's good. See?
Because it's actually fine either way.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But I think we want answers because we want to make sure we're doing the right thing and we're taking the right action. And so much of all of this is about just making a choice and moving on from it.
Yeah.
And not micromanaging our goals. And it can be really difficult because we feel, and I know I did this in the past, when I would go out to eat, I would stop tracking. Or when we would have a big dinner or Thanksgiving or something like that.
Right.
And I wouldn't track, and I would just use it as proof that, see, this is too hard for me. I just can't do it. And policies about how to manage stressful situations really does matter. So I know I joked about answering every single question you've ever had about tracking as a compendium, but that's not actually going to happen. But we're going to answer some questions about how we have learned to deal with situations in our lives that are going to come up. Oh, someone on a Zoom the other day asked the question or said something about, everything's ruined now because the season has changed and now I can't do whatever. And I was like, no, seasons happen. Like it's nothing's ruined. It's just something predictable. So going out to eat is predictable. Having other people cook for you is predictable. And not having the ability to track accurately is part of life. So we're going to tell you that we have made, we're not going to tell you it's actually happened.
Yeah.
We have made policies and practices that have helped us move along in the weight loss journey and actually lose weight. So we are going to impart our knowledge upon you right canal. Wait, no, that canal doesn't. No, that's just now.
We're adding a K to the front of the word now.
Knowledge
canal is what's happening.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer the first question, or I'm going to ask the first question and then answer the first question. Are you good with that?
Don't know if you need to tell people that. You could just ask it and answer it.
Well, they just want to know. Okay. So the first one we're going to answer is, what do I do if I go out to eat and I don't know the calories? So here, we're just going to give you a few options that you can go with. Just pick one. Yeah. See if it works and go from there.
And look, before Catherine answers the question that she told you she was going to ask and then answer, I'm going to derail the whole situation and just say, like, part of the reason that we are answering this question is that I know from my own experience that sometimes I will go out to eat and I will just be like, well, there's no way I can know the calories, so I'm just going to do nothing. I'm just not going to track anything. And well, if I'm not going to track anything, I may as well just eat all the food.
Right. And then I'll get on track tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. So one option.
Oh, and I'm saying don't do that. It's not a great plan.
Okay. So don't.
Yeah. So don't do what I just said.
Okay. So what do I do if I go out to eat and I don't know the calories?
Yeah.
So option one is just estimate a flat calorie amount.
Yeah.
Just don't stress about it. Just track it. So, for example, you could track 600 calories if you go out for a random breakfast, 900 calories for a random lunch, and maybe 1,300 calories for a dinner. Just, but what if it's not? Okay, shh.
Yeah.
Shh.
Yeah.
Shh. Just don't overthink it. Just go and just do that. And make your choice, and then maybe that's it.
Yeah, just don't use it as an excuse to sort of, hammer home what I was just saying. Don't use it as an excuse to go bananas or bonkers, or as we said in the last episode, banana-onkers.
Banana bonkers.
Yeah.
Well, and someone in Volt actually asked the question that they had looked up, they had a scone. Let's just say it was a scone because it was a scone. And they looked it up and it said it was 320 calories. But then they weighed it and then they got home and they measured it and then it was 500. And what do? And it's too much. Shh.
Yeah. Yeah, and
just track the first thing that you see.
And ultimately, it doesn't 100% matter, whether it was 300 calories or 500. What matters is that you tracked it and you have the data and that you have something to go off of so that when the scale moves in whatever direction it's going to move, you know why. And another thing that you can do in these situations is to just look up. Almost all of these calorie tracking apps, or maybe all of them, have chain restaurant calories in them. And so if you're somewhere that's not one of these apps, you can and you're getting, I don't know what, the enchiladas, for example, you can go look at, various chain restaurant enchilada calories and just kind of pick the middle one is generally my policy. I don't pick the lowest one. I don't pick the highest one. But I did this yesterday. In fact, we went to Disneyland just yesterday, and
the famous Mexican restaurant Disneyland.
The famous Mexican restaurant Disneyland. But we ate out during the day a little bit, and ultimately, you know what? I'm going to pat myself on the back. I was pretty proud of my food choices throughout the day, actually. But I just looked up a different chain restaurant's calories for what I was eating and threw that in, and it gives me an idea, a rough idea of what I actually ate yesterday.
Yeah. Well, and I think where the trouble comes in is when we second guess ourselves or go to a different resource and find a different answer.
Yeah.
I know Donald was talking about wanting to get the best value on buying something.
Yeah.
What you don't do is buy something from one retailer and then the next day go scrolling around and then finding a better price or finding that, oh man, I could have gotten something. Don't ruin your life by just second guessing your choices.
I actually do have a policy, and this is not weight loss and fitness related, but when I buy something on eBay, if I might look for something for a good price, for a price that I think is what I want to pay for it, I might look for months and months. But then once I pull the trigger on it, I stop looking at it because I do not want that thing where
that remorse of
a week later, like a cheaper one comes up for sale or whatever. So once I pull the trigger, I'm done. I stop looking because I just don't need that grief in my life.
Right. So if you track something at 300 calories, don't continue to look for information. Just track it and move on. If you find out, oh, well, this one weighed more than that one, just move on. Don't get lost in disappointment from finding the wrong thing.
Yeah, you're basically setting yourself up to be angry and disappointed by continuing to do research on something. Just choose it and move on.
Yeah. And then finally, always assume, just with any restaurant, just assume it's going to be more calories than you think it's going to be. Once you start looking at calorie counts on menus that actually have the calories, you go oh gosh, well, I just got 2 eggs and pancakes, and you find out it's 600-700 calories.
Right.
It's going to be a lot more than if you cook at home. There's going to be a lot more butter, a lot more, fats, whatever. It's fine. Just move on. But calories at restaurants, wherever you go, are going to be high. And that's just the price you're going to pay.
Yeah, they are typically not trying to watch out for your health and fitness. They're trying to make their food as tasty as possible. So you want to keep coming back and buying more of it.
Yeah, and even on the healthy, fresh parts of the menu,
right,
you'll find, and this is true, an acai bowl. The acai bowl at the egg place that we go to was 600 or 700 calories.
Yeah, or the breakfast parfait.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's almost always as much as the omelet,
right,
or the pancakes or whatever. And it's I would just rather have, if I'm going to have the calories anyway, I don't want a breakfast parfait. Look, no offense to breakfast parfait lovers out there. I don't want angry breakfast parfait letters.
I'm Dr. James Parfait, and I...
You, sir, have insulted my entire family. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so that's what you do. Move on.
And then you might be asking yourself, well, what if I'm not the one doing the cooking? What if someone else in my household is doing the cooking? Or what if I'm going to someone else's house for food and they're doing the cooking? Well, you'll see a theme here recurring, which is don't get super lost in worrying about the accuracy of it. But the important part here is that you track and that you make reasonably responsible food choices in these circumstances. So just sort of do your best to guess. And one method for doing that is worry about the really calorie dense items in whatever you're being served. So if you're being served a salad or something, don't worry about the lettuce and the cucumbers. Like, I don't think anybody has a cucumber problem when it comes to weight loss. And worry about the calorie dense things like the dressing, the cheese, the egg, like things that, whatever protein might be in the salad. Worry about that more than worrying about getting bogged down with, the little details. And like I said, the important part is to track something and do your best to guess. And really, you can even, use the same tip from before. Find a generic restaurant salad, estimate what you think it roughly is equivalent to. You don't need to spend half an hour trying to find a restaurant salad that has exactly the same ingredients in it, but take your best guess.
Well, and again, if it's like, well, we had lasagna at my cousin's house, what do I do? Just go to Olive Garden, do whatever the around the world lasagna is, and track it. Don't, you don't have to like have a hand scale like under the table that you're like, well, I measured out the cheese because Donald said so. But yeah, go for the calorie dense portions of it and don't worry about it.
Or you could bring your scale with you, go over early, and while they're cooking, measure each ingredient before they make it, and you will never be invited over again, which might solve a problem.
That's a joke. And something you can do too. And if you're cooking with someone like a spouse or a Trackula companion of some kind. Like, you don't have to marry. You don't have to be a bride of Trackula. You can just be like a long-time committed relationship person. That's a partner.
Yeah.
A ghoulish partner. But if you're making something...
My partner in ghoulishness.
Let the person know, like, hey, you know what? Can we make the main dish together? But then maybe we can add the cheese individually or the protein individually so that I can manage that myself. Because people do like different volumes. Like, but like when I go visit my parents and my stepmom puts salad dressing in the salad, I might say, oh, hey, can I grab the salad before you put the dressing in? Because people do like different amounts of dressing. So just leave out the big pieces and add that yourself.
Yeah, and if you're in a situation where you can do that, that's really sort of the ideal thing, so that you can, you can moderate on your own.
Yeah, and then another thing that you can do if you're not the one cooking is just be the one to plate your own dish, and keep with that old rule that I thought was ridiculous when I was growing up about, fill half of your plate with veggies, a quarter with starch, and a quarter with protein, if you can do that. There are also things, and I know I used to do this of like, well, I can fill one buffet plate to a peak as though it was the Matterhorn or some sort of Everest situation. Just put enough on your plate where the foods don't touch. Just put, just a half of this and a bit of that. It doesn't have to be a mound of food.
Yeah, and we're talking like in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where he takes the mashed potatoes and piles them up into a mountain. Yeah, like don't do that. Mm-mm. But I was also, speaking of science fiction, imagining like it's time to take your starch pill. It's time to take your protein pill. It's time to take your veggie pill.
Yum.
Yeah.
No one said yum to that.
No one said yum to that.
Well, and the final thing is, again, if you're not making the food consistently, or if you're, at a business lunch or something like that, just have a policy of no going back for seconds. There was someone in the group who was saying that they do a sort of family style lunch or dinner with their, while they're working. And she just has a policy of, I go for one plate and I don't go back for a second. That is a simple way of just moderating how much you're eating, is just one plate and that's it. And don't overthink it. Don't worry too much about it.
Yeah, and that's just a fairly great policy in general. We just talked about 11 things for the holidays, and coming up, if you're invited to a holiday buffet or potluck or something, like, not going back for seconds is a really great policy to have in place before you go to one of those things.
Exactly.
Okay, so now you may be asking yourself, but Donald and Catherine, what if I just can't get myself to track?
I can't do it. And that was me for 40 plus years. So we're not adding anyone in particular. I'm adding myself from the past.
Yeah. And look, this is, not the answer that anybody wants to hear, but I would really encourage everybody out there to try and find some way into it. Try and find some, do a tiny habits thing where you just start by tracking one food a day, then make it 2, then make it 3. Because to me, it really is the most effective habit that I have in my weight loss and fitness routine.
So whether it stresses you out to track calories or macros or points, there are other things that you can do to not track. We haven't found that to be true for us, but if you're just not in a position to do that yet, we have some suggestions of what you can do.
Yeah, if it's just your kryptonite, like one thing you can do is just simply keep a log on paper of, or in your smartphone or whatever. You don't have to track the calories, but just keep a log of what you're eating so that then you can see when you get on the scale what is happening. And so perhaps it will at least give you some data which will allow you to adjust. And then another thing you can do is use the ATE app, ATE app. And that is a way for you to log your food and then check in with how you're feeling.
Yeah, so with the ATE app, you take a photo of what you've eaten and then answer some questions about the circumstances around the food. Is it something that you had planned to eat? Or is it some sort of like, oh gosh, this was an impulsive, I know I'm overeating. I know that this is something that maybe wasn't on plan. You can note that. You can note if you were eating by yourself. Was it impulsive? Was it because you were hungry? And it just gets you more in tune with the why around why you're eating.
Yeah. And lastly, well, maybe not lastly, but another thing you can do is try to pre-decide see, I like to think of, there's sort of like early morning Donald is much, I don't like talking about myself in the third person. In the early morning, I am much more able to make responsible food choices. And then later in the night, I sort of, I go like, well.
Right, your resolve goes down.
Yeah, what if I just,
like a vampire.
It's a matter of, exactly. As when the sun goes down, I lose my self-control around food. But if you can at least pre-decide what you're going to eat for the day, map it all out. And it might sound like work, but it's something. Map it all out for the day and then really stick to it. Like, this is what I'm going to have today, and this is all I'm going to have today, and you don't vary from what you've set out. And we're not saying like it has to be a highly restrictive day. Make it foods that you enjoy. Make it, something that's going to satisfy you throughout the day. But don't then on top of that, go banana bonkers off track.
That is a trademark pending.
That's right.
Well, and I think some studies have shown that pre-deciding what you're going to eat actually helps with your portion control. Because right now I could say, okay, we're going to go out for pizza and I'm going to have 2 slices of pizza.
Yeah.
And that might be something that is moderate. But if you don't make that plan, you go, okay, well, I'm going to have 4 slices. Suddenly, as science shows, that's 50% more pizza. No, 100% more. No, twice as much.
I no one
that didn't
knows.
work.
Yeah, no, that.
Okay, I need to go back to math school. but pre-deciding does help with portion control because you tend to make more mindful choices when you're not in the moment of being hungry.
Yeah, look, and we gave this tip in relationship to the holidays.
Yeah.
But I yesterday at Disneyland, there were lots of treats around, and my wife and daughter were like, "Hey, let's get this and let's get that." And I had decided,
I'm your wife and daughter, or I'm your wife.
You're not my daughter. I had decided that I was not going to eat things that I didn't truly care about. And then I don't even know if I should talk about food, but then like pumpkin cheesecake came on the table and I was like, that's something I actually care about. So I'm going to have that. So I had made pre-decided before I went that I was only going to eat a treat if it really mattered to me. And so I avoided a lot of the other treats that were on the table.
Thanks for calling me out. I appreciate it.
That wasn't my intention.
Okay, so if pre-deciding is too much effort, you can also have some basic food plans. And this sort of goes more for, the day-to-day, not necessarily the Disney days.
Right.
Is have 2 or 3 things that you eat for breakfast. Like, okay, I always have an egg McMuffin or a breakfast sandwich. I always have a bowl of oatmeal. I always have, a yogurt and some berries or something like that. Keep
Right.
it simple, because you kind of know, like, okay, that seems like a normal human breakfast that someone would eat. Same thing with lunch. Have 2 or 3 things that you always go to as your go-tos for lunch, whether that's in a restaurant that you go to where you go, okay, I know I like this salad and I know it fits my plan. Just have that. So one planned treat, I know I can have a cookie after dinner. I know I can have, an ice cream sandwich or whatever, and just stick to the same kinds of foods day by day. And then you don't have that huge decision fatigue.
Yeah. And then you at least have some sort of consistency to measure against, and you can be like, oh, well, I'm still gaining weight eating what I'm eating, and you can adjust, or, hopefully, oh, hey, I'm actually like the scale's moving in the direction I wanted to. And this is working for me. And then you can at least try and be consistent without, having to write anything down or to actually track calories.
Yeah. And at this point, you should sort of know what your danger foods are. If you are at a point of listening to, well, what episode is this? 2 something?
This is 251.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to sound like a count. That didn't really work very well.
Yeah.
But have a general plan for those danger foods, or pairing options for danger foods. But things like, I know I love Ben and Jerry's Chunky Monkey, or I don't like Chunky Monkey,
Yeah.
but being like, okay, you know what? My policy is I only buy the single serving cup of that, and
Yeah.
I only keep one in the house. Or I always buy the smallest size of something from Burger King. Those policies help us. I only buy the tall drink. Just always go for small, and that's a policy I'll have around a treat that I really like.
Yeah, and look, I don't mean to be jerkish here, but like, again, not tracking, I do not think would work for me. But if you really just can't get yourself to do it, then these are some things that I think could work, as long as you're really honest with yourself and you're consistent about it.
Yeah. Okay. So to finish this off, we get questions in Walt Place, We Only Look Thin Place, sort of about sort of the end goal maybe being to not need to track calories at all, or to not have tons of policies in place. And I think if you're the kind of person who is naturally self-aware and connected to food choices,
Yeah.
it makes me think of sort of a naturally slim person.
Yeah.
And I am not one of those. I have spent 48 years, and I'm including my babyhood. I don't know. I didn't ask what my baby food habits were.
Yeah.
But I have been the kind of person who has been a compulsive eater since age 4. It wasn't learned. It wasn't stress related. I have always just loved food and thought about food.
Me too.
There are people out there who are naturally more self-aware, are better connected to their hunger signals, their feelings of fullness. And I am not one of those people. But I know that there are people out there who do it naturally.
Yeah, the kind of person who orders something and then doesn't finish it. Like, orders something even if it's like a real treat or super delicious, and then just they have enough and they stop. Like, I don't really know what that's like.
Yeah. But I do know that the more I have worked on my health goals and calorie tracking, the more aware I have become of the impact of certain foods.
Yeah.
And the policies that I've put in place, some of them have been conscious, like the only having a bagel when I get a haircut. And now it's to the point where I can have a bagel once every month and a half, and it's not an issue for me. Donald used to drink 8 cans of Coca-Cola a day.
Yeah.
And now he has a can of Coke once every month or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's no longer an issue.
Yeah. It doesn't even really, like, it doesn't pull me in like it used to.
Right. But we are the kinds of people who see this as a chronic issue. When I, like this summer, didn't track, was more loosey-goosey. There, I said it. This is a family podcast, but I'm going to say loosey-goosey.
Language.
I ended up gaining 10 pounds this summer.
Yeah.
From that kind of like, well, I'm a grown up. It's stressful. I'm just going to do what I want to do. My portions get bigger and my stomach lies to me and tells me I'm hungry at 5:00 in the morning, even though generally speaking, I don't eat until 10.
Yeah.
And when I start listening to my body, and this is just me, my body signals immediately go back to those eat all the things policies. And for me, it's sort of like I'll make an analogy about pianos.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Our dear friend Chopin.
I don't think we've talked enough about Chopin in a long time.
We have not talked about him enough.
Yeah, but in case you're new to the show or haven't heard the episodes, we've talked about Chopin and how he did all of his life's
pianoing.
Work. Yeah, by like the age of 30.
Yeah.
That guy got it done.
That guy got it done. And so we might be thinking of looking to someone who appears to be naturally slim and say, how are they just getting it done?
Yeah.
I want to be the kind of person who just gets it done. And my grandmother, Marion, let's call her Marion.
Yeah.
She was
I think that was her name.
That was her name.
Yeah.
She practiced piano as a child. And when I didn't know her as a child because she's my grandmother. But by the time
I knew my grandmother as a child. It was a time travel episode.
That would be great. But when I was growing up, she had a piano and she would just hear a tune on the radio and be like, oh, you know what? I can play that. And then she would just play, things like In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. No, she didn't. She would play.
Wow.
But when she played piano, she could just play by ear. And I was envious of her piano playing. Wouldn't it be nice to just be able to play by ear? But it turns out she played as a child. She had some natural gifts of being able to hear notes and pitch and whatever you learn on piano. And sometimes I would think to myself, I just want to play piano. Can't I just start banging on things and suddenly be able to play In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida?
Yeah. For some reason, that's the ideal piano song.
It's not. Well, it's an organ, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's a different instrument.
But, I think what Catherine is trying to say is that, trying to say to yourself, well, my end goal is to not have to track calories, I think is sort of like saying, well, my end goal is to become a world-class piano player and to just be able to play songs by ear. But I've never really played before and I've never been able to do it before, but I'm just going to figure out how to do it. Or saying to myself at age 52, well, I know how to drive a car, so I should be able to become a professional race car driver. Like, I should be able to hone my skills to that level to where I can just become a professional race car driver at my age. Those goals feel unattainable to me. And the idea of just being able to not track anything feels unattainable to me as well. If you're someone who can do it, then fantastic. But I know as soon as I stop tracking anything, I might start at a certain level, but then it's that slippery slope where it's just I take one step farther away and one step farther away, and before I know it, all of those those terrible eating habits that I've had since I was a little kid come roaring back.
Yeah, and I think too that wanting to be that sort of naturally slim person, there is a big difference in and I don't know the science behind it, but like our daughter, when she is full, she stops eating.
Yeah.
She will leave, oh, I don't want dessert. I've just eaten. That is not something that she practices. That is not a policy she makes. It's just a self-understanding that is not anything that we have taught her.
Yeah, I was thinking about her when I was talking earlier about people who don't actually finish things. Like, she got a tall, not even a big Frappuccino yesterday, and then she, had about half or 2/3 of it. That was enough for her, and she tossed it. Like, there is no circumstance. I've never been so full in my life that I would not have finished that thing.
Well, yeah, and she even was like, is it okay that I get rid of this? Like, I'm full, and I don't ever want anyone to eat more than they want to eat. Like, I'm very proud of her for doing that.
I know, and I really have to, tramp down my dad instincts of, I spent good money on that. You should finish it. Like, my first instinct was to say that. And then I really was. But I luckily bit my tongue and I was like, oh yeah, No, we don't want her to have
and I thought
to eat food she doesn't actually want.
And I thought to myself, it must be nice to not want you to finish the whole thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't do a very good Borat there. It's been a while. I gotta work on the chops.
You'll practice in the mirror later.
But for me, it's like, okay, if I want to be an elite piano player, what would that take for me at my age and my experience? I would have to practice for hours. I would have to get a coach. I would have to learn to read music. And the idea that I might be a, concert pianist, sure, maybe that would happen at some point. But right now, my objective would be like, I'd love to learn how to play a couple songs on piano.
Right.
And maybe I could memorize a few, like Twinkle Twinkle something.
Right.
And that would be fine, but I don't aspire to be a concert pianist. I think sometimes we compare ourselves to naturally slim people or people who just have some hardcore policies in place who never veer from them and see that as the end goal. But for me, I know that having a budget, having some self-awareness as to what I'm eating, for me, that works. If you are the kind of person who can moderate and doesn't have as deep-seated food issues as we've had for our lives, amazing. Like we aspire, like that is wonderful, and go on. And if you don't want to track and you can make it work for yourself and you can have some things in place that work, then that's amazing. But for me, we're not looking to, and in 4 years, we're never going to have to track again. And that'll be it. I feel like I am managing a chronic condition, like, checking, if I have diabetes, checking my insulin and making sure that that's on track. I see this as something that I'm going to need to work on. And I'm okay with investing that time each day, because when I fantasize about being the kind of person who doesn't need to track, that's when my portions get bigger and that's when I gain. And I know that that has been true for other people that I've seen who are in maintenance. When they stop tracking, when they stop paying attention, they gain weight too. And I'm okay with tracking and investing that short amount of time in my health journey.
Yes, indeed. And, I think, unfortunately, the bottom line here is that for most people, you're going to have to do something, and losing weight and becoming healthy and maintaining your health does require some work. It requires lots of practice, just like learning the piano would be. And it requires lots of habits in place to actually become somebody who can play that instrument / live that healthy lifestyle. Yeah.
And for us, we're not where we were 5 years ago. Like, it is easier to track now. It is easier to make judgments because it is practice. Like, it's like practicing the piano. We are practicing better habits and they become more natural as you go along. And tracking just gives us more accurate results. If you say you want to save $10,000, but you don't want to look at your bank account, you don't want to look at your spending, you don't want to whatever, you might save some money, but if you don't look at the numbers, you're not going to get that accurate result. So it just depends on what kind of accuracy and end goal that you have. But we are grateful that your end goal was getting to the end of this episode. See, I pulled it together.
Yeah, you sure did. So thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, all of our episodes are available wherever you found this one, all 250 other of them. And you can also find them anytime on our website, 24 hours a day at weonlylookthin.com.
That's right. And if you are at our website, you can click on the link for Join Our Support Group and find out more about Wolt Place. We Only Look Thin Place is a weight loss accountability group based on Facebook for women. We are not a weight loss plan, but we are a place for fellowship and connection and accountability. We are plan agnostic. So though we talk a lot about tracking calories, we have people who are doing intuitive eating, macro, and lots of other things, Weight Watchers. So we are there to support each other because it's not necessarily the plan that's the issue. It's our relationship with food. So we have 2 subscription options, a monthly option with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you.
Yeah. And I know we're trying to wrap up, but just, to reiterate, if you are having success and you are not tracking calories, then fantastic. And I know
share the good news.
I know there are people out there who can do that, but that's not Catherine and I. We need to at least track something. And speaking of tracking something, you can track us on social media. Yeah. There, was that a professional transition?
Yes.
You can find us at We Only Look Thin on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can find us via good old email. That's OL''.
Wow,
email.
All the time you saved. You're folksy.
I know, super folksy. And you can email us to weonlylookthin@gmail.com. We enjoy episode suggestions. We enjoy questions, and we really enjoy compliments. So if you want to send us some there, once again, weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
Yep, and if you are into compliments, you can also head over to Apple Podcast and leave us a rating and a review. We would so appreciate it. And
yes,
we honestly do read every single one, and so appreciate it. We can't comment on each, unfortunately, because of Apple. I don't know. I don't know why.
Besmirch the good name of Apple.
Yeah, that's true. But not only does it let us know that what we're doing actually matters, we're almost at 5 years of the podcast.
Yeah, we are. We're barreling down on 5 years.
We're doing it out of the goodness of our heart. So reach into the goodness of your heart and leave us a rating and a review to help others find this inspirational podcast. Not like us, but us.
Yes,
help them find
us indeed. And speaking of people finding us, another great thing you could do that would help us out would be if you would tell somebody about this show. Word of mouth really helps the show spread. So if you know somebody who might like it, please give them a heads up. Or if you're in a Facebook group that's related, or I don't know what the kids do. If
the
there's
Reddits,
the Reddits, the TikToks, the Discords, like all those things, reach out and give somebody a shout and let them know we are out here.
I wonder if the dark web knows about us. I don't want to know about the dark web, but
no, I don't know if we want to give shout-outs on the dark web.
No.
So the next time that you're trying to remember who asks the best questions regarding weight loss and fitness, and who also asks the best questions about Muppets love life, just remember that Catherine and I are
an inspiration-ish.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.